You're listening to the Paranormal Peeps on the Darkcast Network. Come to the dark side of indie podcasts with the Darkcast Network.
We have cookies. Between the realm of the dead and the journeys of the living, join Josh, Jamie, and Elisa as they delve into the vast world of the paranormal and breathe life back into the history of the departed.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Paranormal Peeps podcast.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's been a great time this year so far, and we've got another great topic for you guys today.
Well, I mean, it may not be everybody's cup of tea.
It's monsters.
Well, it's a cryptid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exciting in itself.
I think it's been a while since we've done one of these, so this should be good.
We haven't done a cryptid since we did, technically, the Ningen.
The carrot?
The carrot.
That one was bad.
Oh, that was such a rough one.
That was so rough. There just wasn't a lot of information on it at all. And yeah, that one was bad.
That one was bad. But it was fun because it was something we've never heard of before.
Yeah.
This one we've actually heard of.
Most people have.
Well, at least most people in Utah and Idaho have.
Probably.
So before we unveil this cryptid for everybody, we do have a great event we want to tell you guys about that you can come and join us for. Or with, I should say.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mentioned on previous podcasts that we did our first annual Halloween / ghost hunt last year.
Yes, we did.
We had a wonderful turnout, wonderful people, and we had a great time. And so much so, the feedback on it was really positive. So we decided that, hey, let's do it again this year.
And we picked a great day for it.
Oh, yeah. Probably the best possible day, in my opinion.
Yes. Well, at least haunty, spooky day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which would be Friday the 13th in October.
In October at Benson Grist Mill, everybody.
Which is where we did it last year.
Yep.
And if you guys haven't heard about Benson Grist Mill before, please listen to several of our previous episodes about Benson Grist Mill. It's a great location in Stansbury Park, Utah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's definitely haunted.
Yeah, it is. We've had a lot of great experiences there. Yeah, it's a favorite, to be honest with you, for a number of reasons besides the whole haunted location.
Yeah, and it's big. There's tons of buildings and cabins, and it's just historically neat to see the restored big mill and everything else.
Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, we decided to do it again, and we're gonna have hot cocoa, hot cider. We'll have bottled water. We'll have little grab bags of chips, and little candy grab bags for the end of the night when everybody leaves. You'll be handed a bag of goodies.
We're gonna have great photo opportunities, kind of almost like an Instagram wall in a sense, but there's gonna be terror dogs.
Yeah, from Ghostbusters. So we got 2 of these terror dog props, and they're movie quality. They're cool.
They're super cool.
The eyes glow red. I mean, they are amazing. And we only brought 1 last year. I think this year I want to try for 2.
Yeah, we'll probably bring them both out, so that way you can kind of stand in between them or kneel with them.
Yeah.
And kind of be like Gozer.
Yes.
With the dogs on each side of you.
Yeah, and we'll have a backdrop behind them.
Yeah, it's
to create the scenery for you.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so we'll have photo opportunities. We'll have some porch lanterns, some porch heat lamps out there.
Just in case it gets cold.
Just in case it's cold, you can warm yourself. We had those last year as well.
And we needed them because it was cold.
It was cold, but everybody had such a great time. We will have Lavinia's Eden out there as a vendor, and she was out there last year at our first event, and she will be returning for the second one. And guys, she does amazing work. She has some amazing stones and crystals, and she sells loose leaf teas.
And her wire wrapping is top notch.
Oh my gosh. Like probably some of the best I have seen.
Oh, definitely.
And that's not an exaggeration. I have bought multiple pieces of wrapped jewelry from her.
And from other people, and by far hers are the most intricate. I
have bought the most from her because her quality is it's beautiful. It's unique. No 2 pieces are the same.
No.
So you're getting a very unique wrapped jewelry piece that she does.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have a food vendor out there. A goodie vendor, I should say.
It's gonna be goodies. So I decided that I would be a vendor out there this year, and I'm going to be selling homemade caramels. So now some people know me. I do caramel every fall and winter. I call it Christmas caramel, but I have flavors, everything from original to cake batter to mango to black licorice to lemon to orange to almond.
Pumpkin spice.
Pumpkin spice, you guys. I mean, maple, you name it. I mean, I've got a good variety. So I'll be doing that. I'll be doing some little sugar cookies that are going to be decorated with royal icing that are little ghosts.
They are so
They're
neat.
Cute.
They're so cute.
They're just cute.
They kind of remind me of Pac-Man ghosts.
Yeah, well, last year, and I wasn't a vendor last year, but last year around Halloween, I made a Pac-Man wearing a witch's hat, and then I made the ghosts.
Yeah, that was really super cool.
And so I was thinking about doing something like that this year and selling them. But I will be making fudge, like butterbeer fudge, regular fudge, of course. I've got just a variety of different fudges and cookies and all sorts of goodies. Brazilian truffles I'll be making. So yeah, come check it out. I mean,
it's going to be a good time.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It really is going to be a lot of fun. So, but you can find the link on our social media pages, and our tickets are on sale through Eventbrite.
Yes.
And you can find them there. We're almost halfway sold out, not quite.
Yeah. So tickets are moving, and they're moving at a pretty good clip. So
yeah, I mean, I think the closer we get to October and spooky season, I think the quicker they will go. We are so excited to meet everybody that comes to investigate, and we will be doing demonstrations at the top of every hour or every other hour. It just depends on how the night goes. And we will be doing demonstrations like with the ovulus, with dowsing rods.
The portal.
Yeah, we'll be doing the Estes method.
Which the last time we did the last public investigation we did with the Estes method, it was a blast. People were laughing.
Yeah, we got a sassy old woman. So,
we did. It was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and everybody had a great time. And we hope to see some familiar faces back again this year.
Absolutely.
So yeah, go check it out, guys.
Check it out. All right, on to our topic.
Okay, so what is our topic?
We are going to talk about the Bear Lake Monster.
Ooh. Okay.
Which is funny because the first time I ever heard of this creature was when we went to Bear Lake.
Yeah, I had never heard of it before then. I mean, you hear of Loch Ness.
Yes.
You hear of Champ of Lake Champlain.
Yep.
I had never heard of the Bear Lake Monster.
No, I had never heard of it either. And so we sit at this KOA in Bear Lake. Honestly, great place to stay if you ever get a chance. But there's a little book in there, and it was called The Bear Lake Monster. And
it was a kid's book.
Yeah, it was a kid's book.
It was a little kid's book. I remember this because you came back and you were like, did you know? And he told me about it, and I was like, I had never knew that.
Yeah, not a clue. And so I was like, wow, that's crazy. We've never heard of it. So if you've never heard of Bear Lake before, don't feel too bad. It's actually located on the Idaho Utah border. Mm-hmm. The lake is 20 miles long and 8 miles wide.
That's crazy. So how deep are we talking?
Over 200 feet at its deepest.
Wow.
And that's over by Cisco Bay. Mm-hmm. So the lake has actually been nicknamed the Caribbean of the Rockies because the blue color of the water is like this turquoise color.
Yeah, isn't that from like when the snow melts and comes down, it gives it that color?
It's the limestone dissolved in the water. It's suspended, and so it gives us the reflection.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So remember because like the cool thing is when you come in from the south, you come through the canyon, the Logan Canyon, and you are up high, and you get to overlook the lake.
Yeah, there's this big stopping point up there with restrooms, and it's an overlook, and it is beautiful.
It is absolutely gorgeous. And
I mean, I could spend hours just sitting there
staring at the lake
and its surroundings. Yeah.
And so it's just really a neat lake. And so, like I said, it's over 200 feet deep at its deepest point. And the interesting thing about it is scuba divers have found underwater caves that go into the mountain.
Ah, cool.
Right? And so they believe this is where the Bear Lake Monster lives.
Hides out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, right? Because obviously, if you had a big monster inside of the lake, 20 miles is a big lake, 8 miles wide. I mean, that's a lot of water in that area. But they have, they got to have a place to hide because
Okay,
you
sure.
get caught pretty easily.
But I guess my question would be, does this thing have gills or does it have like actual lungs to where it needs to surface to breathe?
I don't know. And
Because if it's going to hide down in the cave,
it's got to have gills.
it's going to have gills. Unless it's like, like there's some whales out there that they'll kind of sleep at a vertical angle and they can hold their breath for like hours and be fine.
Yeah, I would imagine. Or maybe it's one of those things where, no one's really explored the caves because let's face
Well,
it.
they're deep.
Well, they're deep and
Cold.
cave diving is dangerous in itself.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And so you just never know how far back they go, and maybe there's an air pocket or something back deep inside where
You never know.
They could hide out.
You never know.
The interesting thing is the lake is at an elevation of 5,923 feet.
Wow.
So it's high.
Yeah.
And some people have actually nicknamed it Burr Lake because it's a little
cold.
It's a little bit cold.
Yeah.
Right. So it's on the cooler side, but it's 200 feet deep. Like that's a lot of cold water cycling up and down in the lake. And they estimate the lake to be over 28,000 years old. And for quite a while, it was actually isolated from the Bear River because of earthquake activity.
Well, yeah, that does happen.
Yes, we do get earthquakes up here. And so the interesting thing is because of this isolation from the Bear River, right, there are 4 fish that are found only in this lake.
Hey, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. One of them is called the Bear Lake Whitefish.
Okay.
You got the Bonneville Whitefish.
All right.
The Bear Lake Cutthroat, which is a type of trout. And the very rare, or so they say, Bonneville Cisco, which is something that ice fishermen favor to go catch.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing is because it was this way, right, isolated, is it possible that something survived prehistoric in this lake because of the isolation?
I think it's always possible, especially with a lake that deep and that big.
Yeah. And they think it's possible that this was part of the ancient Lake Bonneville.
Okay.
So a lot of Utah was covered by Lake Bonneville, which is why we have what's called the Bonneville Salt Flats. So is this possibly part of that? But it's hard to say. People don't know if it actually reached all the way to where Bear Lake's at.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It has, the interesting thing is that like all the lakes that have lake monsters.
Yeah.
All have similar qualities, right?
Yes, they do.
They're long.
They're deep.
And they're deep.
Yes.
And so if you're going to hide something, hide it in a place that's got tons of water.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at the ocean I know that these other ones are fresh water. Right?
Sure.
A lot of them. But look at the ocean. I mean, how much of the ocean have we explored?
10%.
Yeah.
I think that's the number. I think or is it less than 10%?
I think it's
so little.
It's right around 10%, but that's so little.
Yeah.
So can you, imagine of what we haven't explored of some of these deep, vast lakes?
Well, yeah, exactly. Because, you got to have people willing enough to dive and qualified to dive in this stuff. And then you got to have people that want to dive in.
Well, and the equipment too, though. Like,
Yeah.
I know we have like sonars and all these other things.
Oh, yeah.
So
We
you
got
have
tons
to have,
of good equipment.
You have to have the equipment to do it. And I know that, they've searched like Loch Ness and stuff.
Yeah.
But if this thing, if like the Loch Ness monster is alive, you don't think that it moves around?
Oh, it's going to, right?
So if you go up one side of the lake and you don't see anything, and then you go down the other side, you can't tell me it's just going to sit in one spot or you're just going to happen across it. I mean, is it possible? Yes. But I think if it's intelligent enough to be alive this long, I think it can outsmart you.
Yeah, exactly.
Instinct, you know?
Well, and the other thing too is, let's face it, if there's limestone suspended in the water, well, that means it's going to be murky.
That's right. That presents another
Yeah. So
obstacle.
how far can you see?
Yeah.
I've never been in the lake, like under the water to go see how far I can see. So if you're relying on your eyes, well, crud. Like,
yeah.
if you got 6 feet of visibility, that means this thing would have to be within arm's reach of you.
That's a scary thought.
Exactly.
If it exists.
If it exists,
you know
right?
what I mean? Yeah.
And so, like, here's an apex predator within 6 feet of you and you can't see it.
That's not good.
No, that is like the terrifying stories of like Jaws and everything else for people, for
It's
crying
like,
out loud.
yeah, there's a big cave here. This is bear country. Here, let me put on this blindfold and just blindly walk in there
Exactly. Yeah, no.
and feel around for some fur. It's not going to work out in your favor.
So the big excitement of the Bear Lake Monster was because of a 1868 news article ran in the Deseret News,
Okay.
which we're going to read for you in its entirety because we have it, which is really cool, actually.
All right. Take it away.
But before we read that, before we go there has been many stories before that from the indigenous people in the area.
That's true. So this goes back further.
It does. So what were they reporting?
Okay, so it was the Shoshone. They claim that their ancestors recounted a legend that's been handed down generation after generation about an Indian maiden who was forbidden to be with her true love. So, like a lot of these stories, this indigenous woman and man ran away together. So they then were pursued by some of their fellow tribesmen, of course.
Of course.
The two lovers ended up plunging into the lake, and its legend tells that they were changed by the Great Spirit into two large serpents. It was custom of their forefathers to go bathing and fishing in that lake. So it sometimes happened that some of them would not return. I mean, in a lake that big,
Well, yeah.
who knows, right? In some mysterious way, which the indigenous people did not understand, they were taken away and never to be seen again. So one day, as they were bathing in the lake, some large monsters, it is claimed, burst out of the water and carried off two of their friends.
Jeez.
The indigenous people describe these creatures as being of serpent kind, but with legs.
So are we talking like, that sounds like an alligator.
Well, they were talking legs about 18 inches long, on which they sometimes walked as they came out a short distance on the shore. So, like when killer whales like fly up on the land a little bit and grab a seal.
Oh, yeah.
You know how they kind of come out just
like
a little
sneak
bit
attack.
and grab. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So this is how I picture it,
Gotcha.
right? Okay. So the monsters, they said, were also able to spurt water upward out of their mouths. And after this terrifying event, the indigenous people named the monsters water devils. And they were often seen at different places in the lake, in and around the area. So the story was handed down from their forefathers, and true to their memories and the fear of some command given by the chiefs, the Shoshone Indians would not camp anywhere near the lake or bathe in its waters any longer. It was also reported that these great beasts preyed on the buffalo when they would come to the edge of the lake to drink water. That's
a big animal. You're talking 2,000 plus pounds.
Yeah, and they just come up and snatch them.
Jeez.
So when the buffalo vanished in the 1830s, the monster seemed to have disappeared as well. And that's like a lot of things. When a predator, when its food supply dwindles or moves, it so too moves in order to find and forage.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. So long they waited and watched for the creatures to return, and they believed that when the buffalo returned to Bear Lake Valley, the water devils would also return in all their fury and strength. So the buffalo never did return, unfortunately, and the sailors brought with them cattle and livestock, and which was a tasty substitute. And they wondered, would that bring the Bear Lake monster back? Now that
the water devils.
Yeah, the water devils back now that they have cattle and stuff.
Well, that's interesting.
It is. It is. But then again, it's kind of like when you see cave drawings from ancient people.
Yeah.
Just like this whole alien thing, you see some cave paintings and stuff that resemble like flying saucers and aliens, and beings from elsewhere. So I imagine that like this stems from indigenous people's recollection of events that happened. So obviously there was something out there.
Right. I mean, it could be water spouts. It could be large fish.
Right. But for something to come up out of the water and snatch somebody that's right on the shore.
Well, you got to wonder if that couldn't be like, so by Cisco Beach, right? It drops to 200 feet.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know the topography of the bottom of the lake, but what if there's a big drop off? What if you're sitting there, and you're like, oh, look, I'm bathing and it's in 4 feet of water. And then you take a step back and the next thing you know, it's down 200 feet. And if you can't swim.
But why would they say that they saw like this thing come up out of the water and grab?
I couldn't tell you.
That's the part that's like
curious, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what were they seeing?
It's obviously something, but hard to say what.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're talking about stories that have been passed down for generations.
Oh, yeah.
So how old is that story? I mean, the indigenous people have been here in Utah and in the Rockies for, millennia before, we settled here, before the Mormon settlers came across the mountain. So,
I don't know. Hard to say.
Exactly. So to the famous story.
All right, let's go.
So this is from the Deseret News, and it was written in 1868.
Okay, so a while ago.
So any of the verbiage and stuff in there might be a little different, and it's because, well, let's face it, it's from almost 200 years ago.
Yeah, people spoke differently.
Yep. All lakes, caves, and dens have their legendary histories. Tradition loves to throw her magic wand over beautiful dells and lakes and people them with fairies, giants, and monsters of various kinds. Bear Lake has its own monster tale to tell, and when I have told it, I will leave you to judge whether or not its merits are merely traditionary. The Indians say there is a monster animal which lives in the lake and that has captured and carried away Indians while on the lake swimming, but they say it has not been seen by them for many years, not since the buffalo inhabited the valley. They represent it as being of a serpent kind, but having legs about 18 inches long on which they sometimes crawl out of the water a short distance on the shore. They also say it spits water upwards out of its mouth. Since the settlement of this valley, several persons have reported seeing a huge animal of some kind that they cannot describe, but such persons have generally been alone when they saw it, and but little credence has been attached to the matter, and until this summer the monster question had about died out. About 3 weeks ago, Mr. S. and M. Johnson, who lives on the east side of the lake at a place called South Eden, was going to the Round Valley settlement, 6 miles to the south of this place, and when about halfway he saw something in the lake, which at the time he thought to be a drowned person. The road being some little distance from the water's edge, he rode to the beach, and as the waves were running pretty high, he thought it would soon wash into the shore. In a few minutes, 2 or 3 feet of some kind of animal that he had never seen before were raised out of the water. He did not see the body, only the head and what he supposed to be part of the neck. It had ears or bunches on the side of its head nearly as large as a pint cup. The waves at times would dash over its head when it would throw water from its mouth or nose. It did not drift landward, but appeared stationary, with the exception of turning its head. Mr. Johnson thought a portion of the body must lie out the bottom of the lake, or would have drifted with the action of the water. This is Mr. Johnson's version, as he told me. The next day, an animal of a monster kind was seen near the same place by a man and 3 women, who said it was swimming when they first saw it. They represent it as being very large and say it swam much faster than a horse could run on land. These recent discoveries again revive the monster question. Those who have seen it before brought in the calms anew, and many people began to think the story was not altogether moonshine. On Sunday last, as N.C. Davis and Alan Davis of St. Charles and Thomas Slight and J. Collins of Paris with 6 women were returning from Fish Haven, when about midway from the latter named place to St. Charles, their attention was suddenly attracted to a peculiar motion or wave in the water about 3 miles distance. The lake was not rough, only a slight disturbed by a little wind. Mr. Slight says he distinctly saw the sides of a very large animal that he would suppose to be not less than 90 feet in length. Mr. Davis don't think he saw any part of the body, but is positive it must have been not less than 40 feet in length. Judging by the wave, it rolled upon both sides of it as it swam and the wake it left in the rear. It was going south, and all agreed that it swam with a speed almost incredible to their senses. Mr. Davis says he never saw a locomotive travel faster and thinks it made a mile a minute easy, which a mile a minute is 60 miles per hour.
That's pretty dang quick.
Yeah. In a few minutes after the discovery of the first, a second one followed in its wake, but it seemed to be much smaller, appearing to Mr. Slight about the size of a horse. A larger one followed this, and so till 4 large ones in all and 6 small ones had run southward out of sight. One of the large ones, before disappearing, made a sudden turn to the west in a short distance, then back to its former track. At this, Mr. Slight says he could distinctly see it was a brownish color. They could judge somewhat of their speed by observing known distances on the other side of the lake, and all agreed that the velocity with which they propelled themselves through the water was astonishing. They represent the waves that rolled up in front and on each side of them as being 3 feet high from where they stood. This is substantially their statement, as they told me. Messrs. Davis and Slight are prominent men, well known in the county, and all of them are reliable persons whose veracity is undoubtable. I have no doubt they would be willing to make affidavits to their statement. There you have the monster story so far as completed, but I hope it will be concluded by the capture of one sometime. If so large an animal exists in this altitude and in so small a lake, what can it be? It must be something new under the sun. The scriptural text to the contrary notwithstanding, is it fish, flesh, or serpent, amphibious, amphibulous, or a great big fish, or what is it? I give it up, but live in hopes of some day seeing it if it really exists. And I have no reason to doubt the above statements. Here is an excellent opportunity for some company to bust Barnum on a dicker for the monster, if they can only catch one. Already some of our settlers talk of forming a joint stock arrangement and see what they can do in the business. I've already extended the letter beyond the limit I designed. The health of the people is good and everything satisfactory except the rushing, buzzing music of the everlasting grasshoppers as they waft themselves through the air, frightened with our grain in the milk. May they mash their brains out against the North Pole. Very respectfully, JCR.
That last part didn't sound very respectful.
They don't like grasshoppers, what can I say?
Very respectfully. Wait a minute.
Yeah, a minute. So what's interesting about that story that was ran in the Deseret News is the writer of the story is recanting other people's experiences.
But not his own?
But not his own. It's a third. He's telling it, and it's a secondhand story.
So he's basically doing it on their behalf.
Yes.
So that's interesting. I mean, I don't know. Do you think that is like a little bit kind of like,
Yeah, it's definitely peculiar for sure.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I have a tale to tell of what I experience, what I see. No, I'm going to tell what other people have seen. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it is a little weird.
It's a little weird. It doesn't mean that's not true or, or whatever. But at the same time, it puts a big question mark there for me.
Yeah. So that was only the first of many to come.
Right. 3 days after the appearance of the first article, the Deseret News, and this was on August 6th of 1868, told of great excitement that was being exhibited over the story. So before a month had passed, someone from the Deseret News staff mentioned that he'd actually talked with many of the leading men in Bear Lake Valley who all firmly believed in the story as it had been published in August 23rd, 1868. So a letter to the editor of the newspaper contained a postscript which read, "Dear Brother Cannon," and it goes on to say, "I have with several parties in relation to the monster story, and it is Joseph or Rich has stated, I am yours truly, Charlie C. Rich, hardly a person in the valley doubted the statements that have been made." So a short time later, Joseph Rich addressed another article to the Deseret News, and this one was on September 25th of 1868, expressing his sorrow that certain persons in Utah doubt the stories about the monster. I am sorry, he wrote, they don't believe it because they might come up here someday and through their unbelief be thrown off their guard and gobbled up by the water devil. Sounds a little butthurt to me.
Yeah. You don't believe my story? Well, you're going to get eaten alive.
Yeah, I warn you. So there are very few people, even here, who disbelieve the monster doctrine. So Mr. Rich wrote further, Mr. N.C. Davis has recently seen 2 more of the monsters, and they were amusing themselves in the lake by spouting water about 10 feet high, say a barrel full at a time. So a lot of water.
That is a lot of water.
Well, and if these serpents or lake monsters are as big as what they claim, then, I mean, yeah, it would make sense. A lot of water.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So the crazy thing is like that's the start. Like those are just the start of all of it. So there was a Mr. P.W. Cook and others have seen one jogging a mile a minute.
Jogging?
Jogging.
So now it jogs?
Now it jogs.
Yeah, I guess as it gets older, it's concerned about its health.
He wanted to let everybody know that he distinctly understands that his eyesight is good and hasn't fooled him for 50 years. So he's got really good eyes, right?
Okay.
And he firmly believes in the water devil as he does in the Bible or anything else that's true. In addition to those already named, I could mention in the neighborhood of a score of others who have seen that varmint.
It's a varmint?
Well, it's obviously a giant varmint.
Well, yeah, usually a varmint is referred to as like a small critter, a raccoon, those things. I just don't imagine this huge sea serpent or lake monster being a varmint.
Right, exactly.
Like a pesky little varmint.
Yeah, like Bugs Bunny, right?
Yeah. You wascally webbit.
Consarned varmint. So the interesting thing is not only did this make its way around Utah, right? But it made its way to President Brigham Young in 1869.
Interesting.
So Young and his party were visiting Bear Lake Valley. As they drove along the beach, they looked into the waters across the surface of the lake, hoping they might see something that would satisfy their curiosity, which had been aroused by the strange tales they'd heard. Although they were unsuccessful, they talked to and stayed with many reliable people in St. Charles who claimed to have seen the monster. President Young wrote, "A family with whom Brother Woodruff and myself conversed, several members of which were in company, which saw the 10 that were described in the News Examiner last summer, speak so confidently and calmly upon the subject, and describe so accurately the appearance of these creatures in the lake that, however much one may be disposed to be skeptical, he cannot accord sincerity to them."
Okay.
So because they spoke so calmly and so descriptively about it, that he believed them is essentially what he's saying.
So he's basically saying these are good, law-abiding, upstanding citizens of the community, and he knows them not to be full of falsehoods and
right. But he's also saying that because they spoke so confidently about the subject and they were so descriptive and so exacting that obviously they have to be the stories have to be true. One of the party had seen a part of the body of one of the creatures rise out of the water before the rest of the group had been attracted to them and has since seen 3 of them.
I mean, obviously they're seeing something.
They're seeing something, but what? Well, and now this is where things get kind of crazy.
Do tell.
So we were talking 1868, right? So in the 1870s, early 1870s, gun sales boomed around the lake.
Oh no.
And several people started moving away.
Okay, so some were scared.
Some were scared.
So they moved away. Others probably bought guns for protection and maybe some to hunt it.
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of a mixed bag, right?
Yep.
So the sightings started to continue.
They started to continue?
Well, I'm sorry, not started. They continued.
Okay, so sightings continued.
So the sightings continued. So you got Elizabeth W.H. Johnson of Randolph, Utah, and her cousin Lottie Peed. They claimed that one day as they were wading in the lake, they saw a monster flop out of the water on the far side of the lake. The water splashed high into the air several times. They were frightened and so hurried to the bank, gathered up their clothes, and ran up the hill to their home, which was close by.
So they saw the actual monster, or they saw something splashing by the shore that created water things flying around, and it freaked them out.
Well, they said they saw a monster splash out of the water across the lake.
Okay, how far across the lake?
This is across the lake.
Like, this is a big lake.
It's 8 miles wide. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So you saw something. Okay.
Yeah. So now there was a rancher in the area, so there was a rancher that bet another that he could swim 10 head of cattle across the narrows of the lake. So the thinnest part of the lake, right? He drove them into the water and they began the long swim. Cows are actually excellent swimmers, in case people didn't know.
They are.
About halfway across the lake, a cow started to struggle and then went underwater. The rancher that was driving the cattle claimed that just after he saw the cow go under, he saw a large scaly creature rise out of the water. He said it was the tail of a large monster diving in the dark depths of the lake with its prey.
I think a cow just got tired and went
Drowned.
under.
Yeah.
Because that's, even at the most narrow part, that's still quite a swim.
Yeah, it's still going to be a grep of distance.
It is.
And while cows are excellent swimmers...
Well, was this a young cow? Was this an old cow?
Doesn't say.
You know what I mean? Because could that not be a factor? Was this a cow that maybe was older, not in the best of health, or injured? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So now we get some more stories of descriptions of what it looks like.
Okay, I'm interested.
Yeah. So in August of 1870, a news report published, the Bear Lake monster has come up again. Ooh. Creepy. So Marion Thompson and his 3 sons of Phineas H. Cook were on the lake in a boat fishing opposite Swan Creek in Idaho. Or Swan Creek, Idaho. I have no idea where that's at.
Oh, it's close.
It's close, right?
Yeah.
Brother Thompson describes his head as serpent-shaped. He saw about 20 feet of its body, which was covered with hair or fur, something like that of an otter, and light brown. It had 2 flippers extending from the upper part of the body, which he compared to the blades of his oar. He was not near his rifle. He said, if I was so near to my rifle, he would have shot it.
You're in a boat.
Yeah. So what he's saying is if he had his gun with him, he would have killed it.
Oh, he didn't have it. He said he wasn't near it. I thought maybe he had it, but it wasn't near him. And I'm like, you're in a little boat.
Yeah. He said he was so close to the serpent that if he had a rifle, he could have shot it.
But now it's hairy?
Yeah. Like otter fur.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets better.
Well, go on, I guess.
In 1871, 4 campers fled when an alligator-like animal, 75 feet long, crawled out of the water near their camp. After returning to the camp the next day, they found it destroyed.
Okay. I think, and I have this issue too, when describing things and they're like, oh, how long is this? Or how long? I think that it's really hard to judge how long something is.
Yes.
Like how it crawled out of the water and it was like, how long?
75 feet, but it was alligator-like.
But 75 feet, how long did it take it to fully crawl out of the water?
Well, if it runs a mile a minute, probably not very long.
I mean, 75 feet of this alligator-like thing had to crawl out of the water.
Yeah.
Did you stick around for all 75 feet to come out of that water? Or were you like gone?
No, I'd have been gone.
Right? Exactly. So I question that.
Yeah. I do wonder if there are alligator gar in the Bear Lake.
Maybe. I mean,
because they kind of like alligator gar have a head kind of like a alligator.
Yeah.
But they 75 feet.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know either. Okay. So in July 1871, so we're still a ways away. Years in the past, right? Malondo Pratt and Thomas, who's the son of Charles C. Rich, had a view of the Bear Lake monster south of Fish Haven, Idaho. They reported that their attention was attracted by an unusual commotion in the waters of the lake. And in looking in that direction, they saw the head and a portion of the body of a creature resembling somewhat the pictorial representations of the walrus minus the tusks. The portion of the body out of the water was about 10 feet long. Several shots were fired, but they missed the creature. It swam away in the direction of the east side of the lake, its tracks being marked by a wavy serpentine motion. Its entire length was approximately 40 feet. The young men watched the monster for about 15 minutes.
Take another shot.
So, yeah, I don't know why they didn't take another shot. But they like...
So now it morphed into like a walrus like thing?
Yeah, without
the tusks.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to fast forward a little bit to 1874, May 18th. A news column was published, who was written by William Budge from Paris, Idaho. Budge was a stake president overseeing all the Mormons in Bear Lake Valley and parts of the northern Utah. He reported that 2 men returning from church conference in Rich County saw something in the water. About 100 yards ahead of them and about 25 yards from shore, the young monster was not more than 6 or 8 feet long, face and head covered with fur or short hair of a light spud potato color, with widespread eyes and the whole face resembling that of a fox with an elongated snout. Budge testified that the lake was perfectly still and visibility was excellent. He finished the article saying, as there has been considerable interest recently in regards to the Bear Lake monster, I submit the description of what was seen.
Okay, so that one kind of fits with the other one about the like color of the hair and that it had short hair.
Yeah.
But it was like fur or whatever.
Yeah. But a face like a fox.
But a face like a fox now. So now we're morphing from walrus to fox.
Yes.
Right on. Did it have a fluffy tail?
Well, they didn't see the tail. So, okay. Oh, man. These get weird. So also in 1874, John Codman came through to Bear Lake Valley. He said, there is good reason to believe that the lake is inhabited by some abnormal water animals. We conversed with several persons who at different times had seen them. They told us that many other individuals could verify the report. The length of the monsters vary from 30 to 80 feet. Their bodies are covered with fur like that of a seal. Head is described like that of an alligator. And in one instance, the animal came close to like a long neck. It rose out of the water, swam a short distance, then disappeared under the water. Yep. And this one individual was he was involved in a boating accident and ended up being the sole survivor.
Oh, dang.
So it said the dark water began churning as the boat was literally sucked beneath the lashing waves, and I felt something cold and slimy push me into the water. Another frantic boater spotted a strange creature with horns. It had hair that was green like the water.
Now it has horns.
Yes.
And green hair.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it just keeps morphing. And this has got to be probably my favorite
description
story of them all.
Okay. Let's hear it.
So this is, and there's no date on this one, but it has to be something newer in time, right? Because this individual was skydiving near Bear Lake when he saw the famous monster as he was falling. He thought it was just some kind of seaweed at first, but then it started moving around and swimming and splashing. It then went under the water and disappeared. He almost forgot to pull his chute because he was so involved in watching the monster.
Well, I mean, I kind of understand that. Like, you're like, what is this? What is that? Look at it. And you forget that, you know, you got to pull your...
Yeah, you got to pull your cord.
You got to pull your cord so your chute opens so you don't, go splat.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So...
they do have, like, freshwater eels.
They do. There are freshwater eels.
So it makes you wonder.
Yeah. Is it like a freshwater eel? Is it something like an alligator gar? Is it a sturgeon? Because sturgeon kind of look funky too.
And sturgeons get huge.
They do.
And let's face it, that lake is huge.
The one person said it. Remember, the article said so small of a lake.
Well, yeah, see, now, I beg to differ.
Well, I mean,
but
if you compare it to the Great Salt Lake, yes, it is a small lake. But
fair.
But 20 miles long and 8 miles wide is a substantial body of water.
And 200 plus feet deep.
With caves. Yep.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
To me, I wouldn't classify that as necessarily small.
No. So, of course, if there's a lake monster roaming around, or a monster of any kind, right? What is the thing that everyone thinks of doing? Catching the monster.
Yeah.
Right? So these people were no different. They came up with many different theories and ways of doing it. And the one that I thought was actually kind of neat, which they never actually figured out how to do it. But they're like, we're going to get 900 feet of rope, 1 inch thick.
Okay.
That's a lot of rope.
That's a ton of rope.
And what they said is that we're going to use a small buoy, and we're going to put on the end of the small buoy, we're going to put about 100 feet of rope and a giant barbed hook. So I just think of this thing like
big fish hook,
like bigger, like feet, like this big giant like stupid thing where you put like half a cow on it, type of deal.
Well, so the image I get in my head of this hook is, on Moana, Maui's big old hook thingy.
Yeah, Maui's fish hook.
Yeah, that's what I picture.
I picture something bigger than that.
Well, okay.
But still, like
along those lines.
Along those lines, right? And so what they're going to do is they're going to attach it to a small buoy, right, and then have that hang. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to put out some more rope and then attach it to a bigger buoy.
Okay.
Right? So make like 2 buoys in there. And then from there, they're going to run the rest of the rope onto land, about 900 extra feet or 700 extra feet of rope to the land, right?
Okay.
So they got lots of extra rope. So what they figure is they put like a sheep on there, and then if the monster eats the hook and hooks themselves, right, then they can just watch the buoys run around and figure out where the monster's at.
Oh my gosh.
It's not a bad idea.
No, but it sounds like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
A little bit. And all of the ideas and thoughts were kind of around a fish hook idea. Mm-hmm. They talked about potentially like straining the lake to find the monster.
Yeah, everybody grab a straw, start drinking.
Right. Well, I just think like a big colander.
I know.
Like just get a big colander out there and like we're gonna strain the lake. Like Spaceballs, remember? Comb the desert.
With the big combs and
yeah. Just running big combs out there.
Oh my gosh.
So, but now there's a story that was published in 1871 that says they did catch the monster.
Okay.
So this was published, and it says, this is a really short paragraph, right? It says, information has been received of the capture of a young Bear Lake monster near Fish Haven. It is said to be about 20 feet in length with a mouth sufficiently large enough to swallow a man without any difficulty. And it's propelled through the water by the action of its tail and legs.
Okay, so was there anything else after that came about? Like any more information?
That was the article. There is no indication what was done with the captured specimen. No photograph has ever been presented, and there are no bones in any museum.
Yeah.
So there was, if you're planning a monster hunt on your own near future, the Rocky Mountain Sportsman magazine has made a few suggestions for you.
Ooh, what are their suggestions?
For bait, we suggest half a sheep.
Why not a whole sheep?
Right.
This thing sounds big and hungry.
Or perhaps 10-pound hunk of Limburger cheese.
Oh my gosh.
If he fails to take the bait, use the rifle.
Oh my word. Are you kidding?
No. If he succeeds in escaping both the hook and the rifle, use the Kodak. For a license to hunt the serpent, see the Fish and Game Department. The limit is 1 40-foot monster or 2 20-foot monsterettes. Any serpent under 10 feet long must be carefully removed from the hook and thrown back.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
Oh, it's so good.
If it doesn't take the bait, use the rifle. If the rifle don't work, use a Kodak. If that don't work, toss in some dynamite. Light, wait 2 seconds, and throw. Make sure your aim is good. Oh my gosh.
I know. It's so crazy.
Oh my gosh.
The funny thing is...
Oh, funnier than that? What we just talked about there?
Well, I think so, because they've named it.
Okay.
So it has an official name. It's the Bear Lake Monster.
Oh my gosh. Okay. How creative.
I know, right? It's like, what do you call it? The Bear Lake Monster. That's it.
Well, you think they call it like the Bear Lake Serpent.
Well, like Lake Champlain has Champ. Loch Ness has Nessie. Supposedly in Lake Michigan, there's Pressy.
Oh my gosh.
Or Lake Superior. Sorry. Lake Superior has Pressy. So, like, they could have called it Bessie.
Oh my God. No, we're not even going to go there. But I mean.
Or Barry.
Barry, the Bear Lake monster. But when you use the word monster, like that is such a broad, like when I think of monster, I think of like on the land, period.
Yeah.
I don't think of a serpent in the water. So why not call it the Bear Lake serpent at least?
Yeah, it's something along those lines,
You
right?
know, because then you get more of a visual. Okay, this thing is mostly in the water, you know.
Yeah.
Monster's such a broad
Yeah, it's such a broad
range of what it could be. And you call it the Bear Lake monster. Okay. Yeah, you think that's self-explanatory, but not necessarily. Like it could be a monster that's on the land, lives in the woods or mountains by the lake.
Yep.
So you're really not telling me anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, there was a legitimate Bear Lake monster.
Okay.
And I say legitimate because it was a grizzly bear, and it was nicknamed Old Ephraim. Now, the reason why it was technically a Bear Lake monster is because it was actually wreaking havoc on livestock in the area, and it was, killing livestock and causing significant problems in the area.
Yeah, easy food source.
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
And let's face it, grizzly bears are a pretty scary animal.
You think?
And they tried to trap it with, obviously bear traps or whatever.
Sure.
And it evaded the trap. It killed sheep. But in 1923, a man by the name of Frank Clark was actually able to track down this bear and kill it.
Yeah.
So if you ever get up to Bear Lake, there's a pizza place there, and it has a grizzly bear on the sign. And that's kind of in reference to Old Ephraim. And the skull of Old F is on display at University of State Utah's Murrell Library.
Is it like massive?
You
Like,
gotta expect
any...
it's gotta be huge.
Well, I mean, that's just kind of the thought I have is that this thing was like big.
Yeah, I'm thinking full grown,
or maybe abnormally big. To be
Yeah.
honest, I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're big.
Honestly,
very big at times.
I have never seen one in the wild, but a 10-foot tall, 12-foot tall bear that big would scare the bejesus out of me.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Scary.
Super scary.
So didn't it come out that the whole Bear Lake monster was a hoax?
Well, so here's the thing. The original news article, the man who submitted the original article, right?
And that was back in 1868,
right?
68 or 63?
68.
68.
Now, he spent a lot of time trying to talk about how reputable his sources were, right? He was trying to talk about how, these people are so important and so, withstanding that they would swear it out. They would for sure sign affidavits. Right. So he was making a very hard effort to prove his sources were legitimate. Well, he came out years later and admitted to lying about it.
Yeah. See, it just goes to prove that people can fool you.
And he said it's a world-class lie.
Did he ever say why? Why? Was he just bored and need something to do? Did he just want to be recognized or what?
Maybe it was a marketing scheme. Maybe it was a way to get people.
What?
Maybe to
bring people to the area?
Yeah. It could be to bring people to the area. Maybe he was trying to drive people out of the area. Maybe he was a gunsmith.
Maybe he was a rope salesman. That 900 feet of rope.
Exactly. Maybe he made rope,
and hooks, big hooks.
Yeah.
And buoys.
And buoys. I mean, it's hard to say fully why he did it. But here's the interesting thing is even though it came out as a hoax, right? One, there were many, many, many sightings afterwards.
Sure.
As fantastical as some of them were, walruses and potato faces and oh my gosh, there are just tons of them. But Bear Lake still celebrates the monster today.
Well, that's kind of neat though. It's kind of fun.
It is. So they have a thing called Winterfest. And during Winterfest, which unfortunately has already passed this year, it was January 27th and 29th. What ends up happening is you get people that go into the water and ice fish, with waders on.
Brr.
I mean, burr. So they ended up dipping using the nets to dip for Bonneville Cisco. So kind of if you've been out and maybe some of you haven't been out there, but if you ever go out and you see people on the Kenai River during salmon season, some would be using nets to catch salmon or to catch bait fish, so they can use those to catch the salmon.
Yeah, we used to go it was in the ocean though, and we would go out there at low tide and then take a net, like a small, what's it called?
Like a colander, like a fishing,
No, it was a net, but it was small hold net instead of the bigger.
Yeah, so a finer mesh net.
Yeah, and we would, take it and you go from right to left and you bring it down the water and swoop it and then swoop it up at the left. And we'd catch these little fish called hooligan.
Yeah.
And we'd use those for bait, like when we went to the Kenai River to fish for, salmon and stuff. So
yeah, so it's kind of like that.
It's similar to that.
Yeah. And so so after they've done dip netting for these Cisco's, once they get the limit, whichever that limit is, they go to the state park marina, where they do the monster polar plunge.
Is that like jumping in the frigid water
Yeah.
naked? Or with just a bathing suit on?
Well, in this case, costumes are encouraged.
Like what kind of costumes? Like you can dress up like a 75-foot sea serpent?
You could.
Yeah, I see that as like maybe a drowning hazard.
Yeah.
or liable to get shot.
Right.
It's the monster.
It's the monster. Shoot
Open
it.
fire.
And then after, so every participant gets a prize, which is kind of cool. Like if you're willing enough to jump in the water in January,
Is your prize like a heating pad?
it should be. Maybe it's just, here's a cup of hot cocoa.
Yeah.
But then Cocos will have hot cocoa, fried Cisco, and scones. That'd be obviously available for people to try out. And then there's an indoor expo.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, where they have karaoke and a hot chocolate bar and donuts and stuff.
I mean, that sounds like that would be a good time.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then they do a cardboard boat regatta.
Oh, my goodness.
And people will do their boats up like the Bear Lake Monster.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then they also do, and then during Raspberry Days, which is in the summertime, they have like a normal parade and stuff like that. And then the Bear Lake Monster shows up in the parade too. And they have floats and stuff associated to the Bear Lake Monster.
That's cute.
Yeah.
That would be neat to go see.
Yeah. Super neat to see.
Yeah.
So the question really dives around is there a monster in the lake?
I mean, I think there's probably things in there or down in the caves that we don't know about.
Yeah. I mean, is it like a large sturgeon? Are there freshwater eels in the lake? I don't know. I don't know what
I have no idea.
the animals in the lake are.
Mm-mm.
Maybe like, because they said it was seal-like in some cases, and I think of like muskrats.
Oh, okay.
Muskrats are big.
Yes, they can be big.
But I can't see people mistaking a muskrat.
No, not a chance.
Not unless it's a irradiated muskrat from I don't know what.
Makes me wonder if they have like river otters. Like if they had like a little grouping of river otters.
That would definitely be an interesting scenario.
I mean, I guess there's lots of possibilities
Yeah.
I'm sure there's things that we don't know about that are in that lake.
Yeah.
And how much has it really been explored? Like you said, the underwater caves. You got to have somebody that's certified to do that and the equipment to do it. But at the same time, that's very dangerous. And I seriously doubt anybody's gone down there and explored any of those caves down there. And how many are there?
Yeah. I mean,
right?
And now with technology today, we can use ROVs to go in there.
Yeah, but I don't know that there's enough interest enough to do that.
No, because I don't think it's a big enough story. One, the original story was admitted to be a lie.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that takes a little bit of the heat off of it.
I think it takes a lot off of it because nobody's going to want to invest their time and the expense of the equipment and, to go out there and do that.
But see, that's where I think people, in a way, it's wrong in that sense, right? Because probably the most famous lake monster, right, of all is Nessie.
Mm-hmm.
And the original picture that everybody saw that said, oh my gosh, there is a monster in this lake.
Yeah. Was proven a fake.
And
admitted to.
And admitted to be a fake.
Yeah.
So it's no different. In the way I feel about it is no different than this story.
Right.
Right. The only difference is like, because we had never heard of it before we showed up at Bear Lake and randomly saw a kid's book, we never would have known that there's purportedly a monster in the lake.
It's not something you hear.
No,
It's just not.
it's not. And so because it doesn't have the same traction that I think that other stories like Champ and Nessie have, I think people just don't want to invest the time to do the exploration. But with such a valuable water resource in the area, maybe it would be good to do some investigating and see what's in those caves. You never know what you'll find.
And, and I agree with that to a certain extent. My problem is that humans take it too far. Like, it begins with exploring and curiosity, right?
Yeah.
And the reports. Unfortunately, most of the time it turns into this hunt. We want to capture it, kill it, bring it in, dissect it, study it.
Well, they already caught it. Don't forget, they already caught one.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they take it 99% of the time. It's taken way too far.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know. For me, that part ruins it.
Yeah.
Like, we always have to, as humans, it's like, why do we have to, like, yeah, you want to know it exists. You want to prove to others that it exists. I totally get that, especially in what we do.
But honestly,
but at the same time, I don't really believe that, capturing it and then submitting it to tests and, and then eventually dissecting. I feel like it's just taken way too far.
Well, and I get what you're saying in that note. But the problem is that in today's day and age with technology and the computer graphics as they are, the only way you're going to get anybody to believe you now, this is whether it's a Sasquatch, whether it's a lake monster, any cryptid and all, is to produce a viable, provable body.
Fair, but we take it too far.
We do.
Is what I'm saying.
We do. We do,
especially with, like you said, the technology today. Should we not be able to, if it's out there, should we not eventually be able to prove it, film it, something, right?
But why have we not captured Bigfoot? Why have we not captured irrefutable evidence of Bigfoot?
Well,
and we've got, I mean, there are thousands of people looking for Bigfoot.
Yeah, but there's so many little rabbit holes you can go down with Bigfoot.
Oh, there are.
So many.
But it's the same concept in that avenue. Because I think more people are looking for Bigfoot than they are looking for Nessie, or they're looking for Champ, or they're looking
hands
for
down.
the Bear Lake Monster.
How many shows are there about hunting Bigfoot?
Tons. Well, not tons, but there are several.
There's a handful or more. There's a few,
and that's only a small fraction of the looking for these cryptids, right?
Yeah.
But that's this piece, right? Is that with all of the technology that we do have, why do we still have cryptids? Because we still cannot get irrefutable evidence. Like, I've seen good video evidence of and pictures of things, but you can't say, yes, that is this. It's more like, it's something.
We don't know what.
But yeah, like, you can't say what it is for sure. And it's the same thing with ghosts in the same avenue. We've seen some very good evidence. We've caught great evidence. But there's, even with the evidence we've caught, there's no way you can say this is irrefutable evidence.
No.
It's definitely strange and it's definitely weird, but it's not like it's irrefutable.
Yeah. And it's hard for those that didn't experience it firsthand.
Right.
Like, some of the things we've experienced firsthand, it's like, holy moly,
Yeah.
This is really something. For others, they could look at, any video evidence that you have, any audio that you may have with EVPs, and they could be like, you're full of it. And I get it. I do. I really do get it, because you weren't there. You didn't experience it. So, I think the same is like for us sitting here talking about the Bear Lake Monster or Nessie or Bigfoot. I think it's the same.
Yeah. We
haven't firsthand encountered, experienced, seen these things. So it's really easy for us to sit here and doubt it.
Right. And these eyewitness accounts, and I use that in a way loosely, in that avenue, but maybe they did experience something.
Well, and I really believe that a lot of them did.
Yeah. And then it's like, man, if I'm experiencing something, what is it? Well, I can't explain it. Well, there's the Bear Lake Monster. It's the Bear Lake Monster. Yeah.
See, the question is, what was it really?
Exactly. So, everybody, I hope you guys really enjoyed listening to this episode.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts on this. It's a mixed bag for me, honestly.
I thought what I found fascinating is how many eyewitness accounts there were. And there are more eyewitness accounts out there. We just didn't go through them all.
Yeah, it would take a while.
It would take a while. So that tells you that there's a lot of people for a period of time saw this thing or thought they saw something in the water in Bear Lake.
Right. So, yeah, if you guys have any like theories on what they actually saw or experienced or any guesses or
if you've experienced it yourself.
let us know.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear from you.
And as always, everybody, stay ghosty, my peeps.
Damn it, Janet.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Paranormal Peeps podcast.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome. If this is your first time listening to us, welcome.
Okay, let's start over.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous.
That is so bad.
Welcome, 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 welcome. It's like doctor. It's stupid.
So bad. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. Welcome.
Sorry.
I was waiting for you to say something and then nothing. I'm like, oh, crap.
Sorry. It's late.
All right, let's try this again.
Okay. And it was Cusbin. What's Cusbin?
I don't know. What's Cusbin with you?
Let me start over. It was custom. Dang, dude. Oh, give me a minute.
Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.